welcome back to the latest episode of Key and Mang Audio Experience. I'm your host, Mang, as always, and my fellow co-host, Key. Key, what's good?
What's up, man? How are you?
I'm good. How are you living?
Great. Pretty
Hey,
good. Productive morning.
productive morning. You love to hear it. Yeah, me
Yeah.
too. Me too. Me too. But on this one, this is our second repeat guest. We had him on this time last year, and at this time he was figuring out the ins and outs of his business and what he wanted to do with his business, creating a name out in his community and figuring out how to bring value to the people that he's working with. Fast forward to today, he's been killing it in the training game, making a difference in Alaska and soon to be nationwide, globally. Owner of Movin With Jerry, Jeremiah Cordero. Welcome back to the pod. How are you?
I'm great, guys. How are you guys doing?
Good, good, good. Can't complain.
Good.
Good, good.
But if you guys missed episode 25, we dive more into his background. And so you can go check that out. We're not going to really dive into the background. It's more of a continuation of the first episode. So, Maya, can you catch us up on what's been happening over the last year in terms of just you professionally and personally?
Since the last time we talked, I want to say it was closer to fall time. So, um, just been, busting my butt working, man. Just I think I have a roster of about 17 or 18 clients now, which is a lot. It's a lot. Um, but I'm still at a point where I haven't really reached that burnout, which is awesome. I wake up every day and I love doing my work and I love seeing my people, and yeah, just been working my butt off. And I want to say it was in January or February. I went ahead and bought a house. So um that's been a process as well. So just like I told you earlier, I've just been working and staying home and working on the house. That's it. Just a homebody now.
Yeah. Welcome to old man life. Welcome to old man life.
Yeah, I'll never be as old as you.
But paint the picture for this time last year. How many people, how many clients were you working with at this time last year?
I can't remember exactly, but if I had to put just an estimate, probably around 5 to 10.
Okay.
So
Five to
I had a much lighter load, let's just put it that way.
Gotcha. 5 to 10 to 17, 18. What was the difference? What was the difference that helped you make that leap and still be ready for that? Because that's a big leap, like you said. And how were you able to, one, get up to that number? And then how did you make sure you were mentally prepared for all the people that were coming into your world?
I think it's a mix. It's kind of a mix of a lot of different things, but if I had to point out a couple, I think it's, I think I mentioned this in the last episode. Being in a small town, word gets out pretty quick. So I think a lot of word of mouth. And then I just quite honestly, I don't mean to be like I don't mean to toot my own horn or anything, but I think the work speaks for itself, man. Clients have seen results, and yeah, people see results and they want the same things for themselves. So I think it's just a matter of me getting better and better each and every day. I know that sounds cliche, but you keep doing your job and you keep putting in the work, the results will pay off.
Cliches are usually true. So
Right.
congrats on the increase in clients. Also, congrats on the house. But in terms of managing an increased workload and productivity and making sure you're not burnt out, how do you manage that?
So that's actually something, anytime you're opening a business, there's peaks and then there's the valleys, there's highs and lows. I think the one thing that I'm trying to work on right now is the work-life balance. Throughout this whole journey, I haven't really been able to spend much time with my family, and that's something that I love spending time with my family, and that's something that I hold dear and near to me. But that's something that I'm trying to work on now that I have an established business. I'm trying to kind of, okay, how can I remove myself a little bit while still maintaining the same workload, so that I can kind of have some personal time for myself, you know, my girlfriend, my family, etc. I think that's the biggest thing right now is just kind of seeing how I can achieve that work-life balance.
And I think that's a common thing that you find with businesses as you start to develop and grow is now how do you find ways to continue to serve your audience or whoever you're working with and still have time to have the quality time with your family, with your loved ones, with your friends, the things that make you happy. How do you now mix it two as one is going up and the other one's having to go down a little bit?
Right.
What's that process been like for you to make sure that you don't forget about scheduling time for your family, your girlfriend, all the things that are important for you, taking care of the house? How do
Right.
you what's that process looking like for you?
I think so about as recent as 2 weeks ago, I went ahead and took Sundays completely off. So this whole this is going to be crazy, you guys. Fleming, I think you know this already, but I was working 7 days a week. I didn't really have an off day. Um, Being a trainer, like obviously you don't see clients consecutive. You can, but if you set your schedule up that way, but you usually have some gaps in between your people. So I would consider that my time off. But it's really you're not really getting real time off because sometimes we work from home as well. We're developing programs for people. We're doing content, which is something that I also want to work on. Um, we're never really like, even if we're not in the gym training clients, we're still working. So I'm trying to take like an actual day to just like completely get away from work. I try to just like hit the reset button, and Sundays are like a good day for me to do that. It's kind of like a typical day for everyone to do that. So um just kind of taking that, making that boundary and setting that boundary and making sure that I kind of stick and adhere to that. Because sometimes I'm the type of person who like I want to serve people and I really want to help people in the best way I can. So sometimes like I can be convinced to work on a Sunday. I don't want to do that. I want to really like stick to try to make sure that I'm giving myself that time.
Is it hard for you to give yourself that Sunday off? Like, do you struggle with detaching?
Yeah. And I find that not only in work, but like in my personal life, I like, for example, with working out, it's really hard. Like, we tell our clients and our patients that we need time to rest our bodies. Um, I'm like, I'll be the first to admit it's so hard for me to take a couple days to rest, take a couple days to recover. Just because like I think that part of me stems from like my sports background. Like we're just taught to like work as hard as possible, as much as you can. And I think there's still like a little part of that in me and will forever be in me. And it's really hard to remove that. So it's really hard. It's really hard work and personally.
Oh my God, I keep unmuting, not muting myself. I'm so sorry. I think that I feel the same way in terms of like it's hard for me to detach, but I realize I succeed. I thrive with not giving myself like a designated day off and instead just like going based off of like how I'm feeling. Like I tell my clients like I'm available all the time, but if I don't respond, um I probably like just took the day off because I don't want to tell them not to reach out to me, but I just go as long as I can until like I feel like I need that time. I feel like when I was doing a designated day, I didn't need it. Like I think it was too routine. So
Right.
I think it's cool to see like the different ways people like manage um their self-care and ways to prevent burnout.
See, I'm like a creature of routine though. So like your way that probably works great for you, but for
Uh-huh.
me that would totally not work because then that would stress me out. I'd be all over the place.
I mean, it's probably not the best thing, but I felt like just like going based off of my
It's
feelings
the,
work.
it's
But
the best
yeah,
though. So
Yeah, exactly.
everybody has their own way of handling their situations and their circumstances and their business. So um, kudos to you.
Thank you. In terms of content, talk about content and the role it plays in gaining clients.
I think so. There's a lot of in our industry, there's a lot of influencers that post just like random content. Um, I think I've been like a part of that as well. Like as far as like in the beginning phase of my business, like just trying to put content out as much as I can when like you need to post like relatable content. We were talking about that earlier. There's a difference between just posting random content just to put content out there versus putting content that people can relate to. So for example, you post something about like recovery, and you make it really like complex. A lot of times, like 90% of the people you work with aren't going to understand um, like complex terms. So kind of simplifying things to make it relatable is and has been like the most effective way for me to reach out to people. Um, I think sometimes when I try to make things too complex and too almost in some cases too educational, and that sounds kind of weird, but sometimes just going the simple route is the best way to go. Try to be as relatable as possible. That's been the number one thing for me as far as content, for sure.
I think your content really takes off when you dumb it down. And it's so counterintuitive because you think that like people are gonna sign up with you because you sound educated. People don't care about that. They just want to know like in the simplest terms. And I also think being able to do that comes down to like knowing who you want to work with because you have to put it in a way that your people understand. That simple terms may not be for somebody else's audience, but for your audience, they're going to relate to that because it's in terms that they specifically understand. And I think people try to make content for everybody when it's
Right.
not supposed to be that way. If you want to like build like a tribe and a community of people that are invested in you.
100%. There's some people that actually enjoy that kind of explanation, which is fine. But most of the people that I work with, I know like in the beginning that I would try to like explain things in the most educational way. And they would just kind of give me this look like they have no idea what I'm talking about. And I'm like, okay, I gotta kind of adjust that a little bit. So I now even like with my like queuing in person, like or when I'm trying to give tips in person, I try to just make things as simple as possible and just break it down in the most like understanding way.
I think that's the key. I think the simpler that you can make your processes, or like when it comes to content or coaching, I think that just helps you build your foundations for when it comes time to do the more advanced stuff because you've already built the baseline or the foundation and you can just continue to add on it. But if someone doesn't understand what you're trying to get them to do, then they're asking them to need harder and you're just more confusion, more things going on, more variability, which can be good, can be bad. But I think just trying to simplify things is super important. And then when it comes to like creating your content, how have you has your like messaging shifted? Like how do you find who people that you're trying to work with? Like how do you use social media to get your message across about what you do and like, who you're trying to help?
I don't really have like a specific group that I want to work with because I'm still in that phase. I feel like that um I want to work with a ton of different types of people and different groups. But I know at some point that's gonna come and there's gonna be a time where like I kind of go back and forth with it though. There's times where like I'd rather like I personally I may have mentioned this in the last episode. I personally enjoy working more with women, um, simply because in my experiences they're a little more receptive to the information that I give them, and just a little more receptive as far as like listening to the cues that I give them, and um, they're just better listeners. in my opinion. Not to say I have great male clients, but I just think that they just fit better with me, I guess, if that's the best way I could put it. But like the age range is like very wide. Like I work with anywhere from like middle school to high school kids. And then my oldest client is about like 67. So it's a really wide range of clients. But so I really haven't gotten to that place quite yet. So I don't think that my content or my messaging has really changed since I started. I just think that, like I said, going back to making content relatable, I just think I try to make it as simple as possible for everybody to understand, not just one specific group.
What are the similarities in training somebody at that high school age and somebody that's like in that getting closer to that geriatric, like older adult age?
Ooh.
Or
Do you mean in general, or do you mean with personally my clients?
like how do you is there any differences in how you coach them or train them from like high school and that age? Or are there any similarities as well?
I'd say the similarities. I'd say that they're both like very invested and they take the time to really learn. And then I know you didn't ask for differences, but there's a huge difference. Kids' attention spans are a lot like shorter, so they tend to kind of get off track really easy. So you kind of have to keep them engaged and keep them interested. So a lot of times with kids, I do like a lot of like fun plyometric exercises so that they enjoy it and they're having a good time. Whereas like my geriatric clients, like sometimes for various reasons, injury history, health history, sometimes they can't do those specific plyometric exercises. So I think just like obviously the programming is a little different. And then also just like the attention spans of them are just very different also. Like my geriatric clients, they tend to like be invested and like really in tune for a while, and they can hold that for a long time. But the kiddos, you got to really make sure they test you, man. Like you got to really be on top of your stuff to be able to have them invested the whole time. It's a challenge, but it's a good challenge. So
How do you get let's say your geriatric patients, like, is it hard to push them, or do you need to like work a little more to get them to do things that they think they might not be able to do? So like I'm thinking of like plyometrics, and sometimes that can be good for like bone health or like preventing falls and being able to produce power really quickly. I'm thinking like, do you have a hard time if there's someone who's older and wants to improve their physical fitness or decrease their fall risk or whatever the case may be? Do you have a hard time communicating to them like the importance of moving things fast, being able to jump, or do you just kind of have them do the basics, the fundamentals really well and kind of tailor it to them or what they're thinking?
I think it's different with each person, obviously, but I will say that in general, more so it's harder for people to push themselves without a coach. So obviously having a coach like me or whoever your coach is, it's going to be easier to yourself past that threshold that you wouldn't push yourself if you didn't have a coach. But a lot of times you can sense like when you tell them, okay, we're going to try to jump on this box today, like a higher box than they did the last week. Just using that as an example. You can sense like with their facial expressions that they're a little scared and they're a little hesitant. So I think just like making sure that you also instill confidence in them. Confidence is a huge thing. And not just like giving them confidence for no reason and just trying to like hype them up for no reason. You want to make sure that you give them that confidence that's like genuine confidence, not just telling them something that they just want to hear. So things like that can really push them past that limit that they wouldn't push themselves if they didn't have a coach. So I think that's the number one thing.
And how do you go about building confidence in your clients? Because I agree with you. I think the confidence is a huge part of it. And I'm just curious to hear how you build confidence in your clients to show them that they can do things that they might not have thought was possible.
Right. I think it's a huge one that like not people would the confidence booster, calling them by their name, like making sure that you're like recognizing them and making sure that you acknowledge them. That's like, and I read this in a book. There was like a study that showed that like I want to say like 20 to 30% of the people in the world like do better in their respective fields when they're acknowledged by their name at least once a day. Which is like that to me is an astronomical number. So I think doing that and then also making sure that you're making sure that when they do push themselves, that you recognize it. I think a lot of it is just recognition. Like a lot of times people don't give themselves that recognition and they don't give themselves like props for doing something that they haven't done before or pushing themselves farther than they have before. I think, yeah. So just recognizing them, making them feel like they're acknowledged and making them feel that they're doing a great job.
Yeah, for sure. And I think it's so simple, just calling somebody by their name and acknowledging their accomplishments when they happen. I really like that answer. I also think just being able to show someone like where they started at and be like, you were doing this before 3 months ago, now we're here. We've been slowly building it up, and you were setting them up for success along the way. Like you're not just having them jump up 40 inches that never jumped up a 12-inch box before. Like you're slowly building it up. And I think that's where the good coaching comes in, where I really think you where somebody's at and they tell you their goals, and then you'd be like, all right, well, this is how we're going to get there. And I'm slowly going to introduce things that are going to get you closer to that. You might not see how it's going to happen just yet, but at the end of that, when it's time for us to retest, you'd be like, oh, wow, like I'm pushing this much, or I'm jumping this high, or I've noticed this in my day to day, and this wasn't happening before. So I just want to give you a props. I think you do a really good job of, instilling that confidence and setting your people up to make sure that they are going to get to where they want to go, and figuring out ways to reverse engineer and make it as easy for the person as possible. Like really all you gotta do is show up and do what you're supposed to do, and then like trust the process, and you'll get to where you're trying to be.
Right. There's a saying that I tell all of my clients, or it's not really a saying, it's just something that I tell them to like make them feel like encouraged. I tell them as long as you show up to that door, that's the only obligation that I have. I just need you to show up. You show up, I will take care of the rest. Like the rest is in my hands. Like all you need to do is just make sure that you drive to the gym and you show up through my door. The rest is going to be in my hands and you're going to be in good hands. So that's another way, actually. It's just like having confidence in yourself that can like ooze out into them. Because if people know that they have a confident, good coach, then they're obviously going to feel invested and feel good about things.
I agree with that. And also another thing, especially for I think the older population, is like just raising awareness of their ability and like physical function outside of the gym. So having them like reflect weekly, bi-weekly on the things that have gotten easier for them. I think that is a good way to instill that confidence in areas where like you're not with them. Because it's easy to go through life and not really pay attention to your progress. Yeah, you may be able to like jump high or do a certain number on squats, but how does that like translate to your outside life? So I think having them reflect is also another way to build confidence and like self-efficacy.
Right. Are there, as far as like the online world, are there any differences as far as like kind of recognizing your clients versus like me? Like differences for me because I work in person mostly. Is there any differences as far as like trying to get your clients to have confidence and stuff like that?
I think it's easier to instill confidence in person. But so yeah, yes, there is a difference. So the thing I just mentioned, the reflection, and then also having people like be able to, for example, a perfect example would be like, say I have a hour workout scheduled for you, usually work out for an hour, and you're unable to do the hour. So instead of reaching out to me, like clients have like modified their workouts on their own, because a lot of people I work with get a coach because they don't know how to plan for themselves. They don't know how to like work out in terms of like busy schedules and stuff. So being able to be more independent is a way that I teach my clients to be confident. But in terms of actual workout progress, that's where other like metrics come in. And I think with women specifically, the more metrics you can have in terms of progress outside of a scale, that also increases confidence in terms of just like you as a person. So I think in online, it's more so it's different in the sense where it becomes less workout oriented and more like personal development, I feel like. And
Right.
then that's why I think online coaching is more so of a experience than in person.
Yeah.
You have to make it more of an experience in order for people to get the most value out of it.
Right. 100%.
I
I
have a
think
question for you. Sorry, go ahead, May.
I was gonna say, just to add on, I think Key does a good job of also when clients reach a certain milestone of like they worked out 4 days in the week or worked out X amount of time in the month, he will acknowledge that and send them something like she'll send them goodie bags or swag from Keep It Fit or Lifting for Women and get them a trap bar, get them plates. Like Key will go
Yeah.
out of her way.
I saw that. That's sick.
Yeah, Key will go out of her way to make sure that she acknowledges and that her people are getting everything that they need. So I think that also helps with the confidence to know that your coach is looking out for you, even though it's not a in-person thing, but your coach is paying attention to what you're doing, the progress that you're making, and they're rewarding you for the work that you're putting in. So I think that also incentivizes you to continue to push because you know if you keep doing your thing, Coach Key, Coach Jeremiah is going to like fight, keep acknowledging you and keeps telling you you're doing a good job.
That's really cool because a lot of people, I'd say like the biggest hesitancy for people to sign up for online coaching is because they don't have that in-person experience as far as um like recognition or like holding people accountable. So you going taking that extra step to like reward them for their progress, that's huge, man. That's kudos to you because that's awesome.
Thank you. I have fun doing that, and I can personalize it to each client. So yeah, I do enjoy doing that. We keep throwing around this word coach, right? And I want to know what is both of y'all opinion on what's the difference between a coach and a trainer,
Ooh, I love that you
if there's a
asked.
difference.
Uh, you go first, Fairman. I want to hear what you do.
Dang, okay, putting me on the spot here.
Yep.
I
I can
think
go first if you want.
you could go ahead. Go ahead.
Okay. So I don't put you on the spot. So I thought about this. I think in order to be a trainer, I think honestly, to the naked eye, I feel like they're synonymous. But when you really look at the word, I think a trainer, when I think of a trainer, I think of somebody who is able to like walk you through a workout, be there in person, right? But then when I think of a coach, I think a coach is more holistic and takes consideration or takes into account your entire like lifestyle in terms of like your emotional aspect, how your routines are, how your habits are, and then they're able to like influence you outside of just those sessions. I feel like trainers are really just workout oriented and like program oriented. I think coaches are more holistic in the sense where they're able to address like the different facets that impact your results, because it's more than just the workouts. So that's how I view a coach. I feel like in order to be a coach, you have to be able to train people, but I think the coach is like the next step. Like it includes like emotional intelligence, personal skills, all those things.
Yeah, no, I agree. I agree with that. I was gonna say, I think a coach, I think of just like of the ultimate guide. Like a coach is guiding you to your end goal. And if it's a certain physique metric, that can be a thing. But like you said, it's more than just the training. It's maybe it's stuff about the nutrition. It's more about the recovery, about the sleep. How are you taking what you are doing in the weight room and transferring it outside of the weight room or at the training facility or wherever you're at? I think of a coach more of a guide to help you along your way to the journey that you're on. Trainer, I think of just point A to point B. Whatever your goal is, let's get you there. Whatever it takes. That's what I think of trainer when you first asked that question.
Um, before I give my answer, I want to say they both serve a purpose, and they're both very useful. So, but the best, like the most simplistic way I could put it, we all have sports backgrounds here. Being like a one-dimensional athlete versus like being multi-dimensional, so like being able to do an abundance of different things on the field or on the court, that's like a coach to me. Like being able to adjust on the fly and being able to adjust from client to client. Not to say that trainers don't adjust either, but I think, like for example, I actually had this happen to me like a month or two ago, where we have our set programs for our clients, and some days are just going to be worse than others. Like some days stress in their life is really taking over, or they had a really rough day at work, or they had a really rough day at home. Being able to adjust and say, okay, well, we're going to have a little fun today instead of doing this hard workout that I had planned for you. Because sometimes like that workout that you have planned for them, the amount of stress that they have, that can be counterproductive. So I think being a good coach, like you're able to adjust to people's stressors, or like acknowledging that certain days aren't going to be the same. So being able to adjust on the fly and just say, okay, well, maybe we'll just take it easy today and not push yourself because you're going through it today. And I don't mean to say that like your clients at the end of the day should still be pushing themselves, but work smarter, not harder, if that makes sense.
Definitely makes sense. And I think that's also a value of having a coach, because a lot of people run themselves into the ground training, and they do things in the mindset of, or in the belief of like more is better, when that's not really true. It's more so being efficient is better. So having a person there to kind of guide you and tell you like, hey, let's like dial it back a little bit today and still put together a plan for you for that day to keep you on track, but not completely like overload your system and increase your stress levels is important. But I think many people don't know how to do that independently. So that's the value of working with somebody to do that.
And I don't think people recognize also that the real work is done at home, and like when you're resting, it's not in the gym. Like obviously you need to like move your body, and you need to lift weights, and you need to do your cardio and stuff like that, but the real work is done through your nutrition, your recovery, your sleep. Your sleep is huge, 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 huge. So that's why I really try to stress to people that like you can do all you want in the gym, but if you're not taking care of yourself outside of here, then like it's counterproductive at that point. So just getting people to understand that Like there is way more to it than just lifting weights.
Sleep is a big one, because if you think about it, when you're sleep deprived, that's when you make some of the worst decisions. Like think of like when you were younger and you like stood up too late and you had to go to school. Like I would make the worst decisions. I would go to Dunkin' Donuts, get the sweetest coffee ever. I would get a bacon, egg, and cheese, and then some hash browns, and then I would crash during the day, and then I would get another coffee to try to keep me up. And then when I get home, I don't have the energy to work out. Like I feel like sleep is important, because when you are sleep deprived, you're not like functioning at the best you can, just because your body's just trying to play catch up.
Right.
You're like in survival mode.
And we're, as humans, we're creatures of habit, right? So you start to develop that as a habit. So you got to be really careful, because that can turn into like a snowball effect real quick.
So I have a question then. Back to Key's original question. Then are we saying that all trainers should aim to be coaches, or should there be a distinction between a trainer versus a coach?
I think in my opinion, I think a trainer at some point has to transition into being a coach if they want to be successful. I think, because I'll relate it back to sports. Do you want to be just like a one-dimensional athlete, or do you want to be able to do multiple things? Like most of the I'll relate it to basketball. Most of the players that are like at the top of the league, most of them are like able to do an abundance of different things really well, right? And if you're set to one skill and that skill only, you're not going to really make it that far. So I think to start, it's like obviously you need to become a good trainer, but then as you evolve, you have to evolve into being a good coach. So I would say it's like a transition. There's like a transition period.
I think I'm gonna say, I think it depends, but if I had to choose, I think I'm thinking from like with your example, like athletes being like not just one dimensional, being able to do multiple different things. I think you are going to get to a point where you need somebody that like trains you in that specific thing. I think once you start having somebody, like for example, that's like having me as a physical therapist. I specialize in rehab. That's like me trying to coach you. They're like now on like nutrition. You know what I mean? So I feel like at some point you do need some type of specificity, and I do think trainers give you that specificity. But then you can also argue, don't coaches do that? But that was just my initial response. But so I think there's merit in trainers being trainers.
So a little side note, I think also the quality of a good coach is not projecting like your goals and needs onto your clients and respecting like what they want. So like in like to argue that point, like so as a coach, like you're right, you want to maintain some sort of specificity to like their wants and needs, and not project your wants and needs onto them. So like if a female client wants to like grow her glutes and get bigger arms, let's just put it that way, don't just like give her a ton of different other exercises that work different. If she really wants to grow her glutes and her arms, really focus on that. Focus on your client's needs, not your needs, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that makes sense. Then this other example I just thought of. So say you're all right, Ming, I'm a basketball coach, right? I'm the head coach. I coach the team. Then we have a basketball specific trainer. Ming is a basketball specific trainer, right? Would you want that person also becoming the coach, like also like being viewed as a coach, or just like staying in like the trainer's place? Like that's what I'm trying to say. I feel like the specificity is important there, but like you're still gonna view your coach as your coach.
100%.
Like when I played basketball, I never like viewed like the people that were doing like the skill specific stuff as my coach. Like they were like my trainer. So that's
Yeah.
how I'm thinking of it. But you can argue either way.
That's
Yeah.
like you putting it that way is like the best way to describe it. Actually, I really like that.
Yeah, because I was thinking of like using your basketball example again. If I made it to the NBA and I'm really good at shooting, and that's what my team needs, then I want someone that's going to help me be a better shooter so I can fulfill my role. But I think it's important to have people that help you get to your end goals, but then also having the ability to have other people in your circle that can fulfill the other aspects of the things that you need to improve on. So shooting is still my main goal, but I have other people who help me with my recovery, my nutrition, my dribbling, my passing, all the other stuff, but I'm still focused on that one thing that's going to get me the most success in my role right now.
Right.
That's kind of what I was trying. That's where the question posed from. So I'm like, is there a place for very elite trainers to be really elite at what they do, and maybe they're content with that, continuing to learn still, obviously, not like resting in their more laurels or whatever, but being able to also have the awareness to hand off to other people who might have specialize in a different area. That's kind of what I was thinking with that question.
That
Right.
that makes me think of like healthcare. Like we all have our doctor, right? But then you have like specialization. Like if you have heart problems, you have a cardiologist. If you have like rheumatoid arthritis, you're probably going to a rheumatologist or something like that. So that's what I was thinking too. But I think that's a good question. I think you can argue either way. And at the end of the day, like coach or trainer, I think is like to the client, I think is really just semantics.
Right. And
So
well, and then you can also ask yourself, like, okay, then like I guess it just depends on the situation too, right? I mean, if we're just speaking on personal training, I'd probably want more of a coach than a trainer. Um, but if you're talking about like sports, and yeah, I mean, I have my coach, and then I also need to have my trainer as well, and have them be
relative.
so I think it's just relative and dependent on the situation and the field you're in.
Yeah.
I
Good
really
decision.
like that question actually though. That was a good topic.
Yeah, I agree. Good job.
And then to circle back, you talked about having confidence in yourself and building that up, like being confident in what you bring to the table and your knowledge base. How have you grown your confidence in yourself? Like what are the steps you've taken to improve as a trainer, as a coach, as a person to be able to deliver more for your clientele?
I think the number one thing is staying true to like my advice that I give to my clients, like reaping like doing as I say. So like making sure that I get good sleep, have good nutrition, making sure that I take my rest in between my workouts, um, and working out smart in like a productive manner. And then making sure that I'm always learning too. There's a lot of times people will tend to when they make it to a certain point, they tend to stop because they've made it, quote unquote. But there's always like we're always evolving, and um information is always changing. So I think, and there's always going to be a new thing around that's going to either make things better or challenge us. So just continuing to make sure that you're learning and evolving with time.
And then as a follow-up to that, I used to hear a lot, do as I say, not as I do. And it used to take me for, I used to get so mad whenever I heard that. But being in a position of a being looked upon as a someone who knows about the human body and trying and performance and fitness, what are your thoughts on if you tell somebody to do something and they follow it, but then they see you not doing what you follow? Do you feel like you lose credibility, or do you feel like because you are able to or produce that knowledge, does that and still maintain your credibility? I guess that's what I'm trying to say. Like, do what I say, not as I do. Do you feel like you should, everything that you say, you tell your clients to do, should you then follow that? Or is there some wiggle room with that?
To a certain extent, you definitely should have some wiggle room, because at the end of the day, even if you're a professional, you still make mistakes, and you still should be allowed to have that wiggle room to be able to have those days where you're just not feeling it, and you're not. I've told my clients this before. I'm here. I'm not 100% here, but I'm 100% here for you. Like, I'm here for you and I'm investing in you, but I physically am not 100%. And that's just being transparent and honest. And even through that though, like I make sure that I'm 100% there for them. But physically inside of me, like physically, I sometimes I just don't have it. And sometimes people can see that, but as long as you're transparent and honest, I think that that's the biggest thing. And just making sure that you give yourself that wiggle room. Because at the end of the day, no matter if you're a professional basketball player or physical therapist or personal trainer, you're going to make mistakes, and you're going to have the off days where you're just not going to be at your best. So, yeah.
I was thinking when you asked that, Ming, do as I say, not as I do. Is that like in terms of like consistency and like being a leader and like things like that? Or is it like style of workouts and same habit? Like what exactly are you talking about in terms of that?
More of the first thing, because I understand that everyone, different body types, ability to do different things are different, but more in terms of like the habits that you're talking about outside of the weight room, recovery, sleep, nutrition, that thing.
Yeah. I think what I've been telling my clients is like you're the average of the stuff you do on the daily basis. So you're gonna have like stuff that's not so great and probably not what you should be doing, and stuff that you should be doing more consistently. But as long as you're doing like the good things consistently, I think that you'll get to where you want to be. And I think that goes for coaching as well, because unless you're like an elite athlete, I feel like you're not like at 100% all the time. I don't even think they're at 100% all the time. They're probably closer to that number. But I think when you're working with like general population and like people that are trying to just improve their health and like improve their physical capabilities, I think that the average, like doing that on average is good enough. But I think as a coach, you need to be doing that as well. Like you always should be like a step ahead of that person. And then you may start to lose credibility depending on how long you've been working with that person.
Right. Let me ask you guys a question kind of similar to what we're talking about. Do you think physically you have to look a certain way to be able to be a trainer?
Sorry. You may want to go first? I'll go first. I think that it depends on.
Kind of a controversial topic, but
Oh, I'm all for it. I honestly think that it depends on what the person wants. Like, and I think as a coach, you need to be okay with that. For example, I'll take me for an example. I don't have a very low ass body fat percentage. So I don't expect people who are interested in bodybuilding to want to work with me. And that's totally respectable, right? But at the same time, if I wanted to work with those people, I don't think that I should feel like I mean, maybe I feel like I'm capable of that, but I shouldn't feel like, oh, why are these clients not wanting to work with me? Like, look at how you look, like you don't fit the part. And I think that people think that's mean and kind of harsh, but I think perception is what it is. It does play a role, and we need to acknowledge that. So I think it depends on the clientele you're working with. And I also think that it depends on your experience. Like I've seen many trainers who were coaches that started a certain way, like they were leaner when they were younger, and now they're still strong, but they may have a little bit more body fat now, but they still get that clientele that wants to look how they once did, because the people have seen that they've got the results for themselves. So I think that I forgot the question, but I think it does play a role. I forgot the exact question. So that's my opinion. That's my opinion on everything. So
Yeah, I think that to some extent you should be able to do what you want your clients to do or the people that you're working with to do. I know for myself, I'm not going to ask you to do something that I can't show you. If I don't feel comfortable doing a Turkish cut, then I'm not going to teach you how to do a Turkish cut because I don't know how to do it. But I do think if you might not exactly look the part, if you can explain or teach in a way that is understandable for the person and is getting the intent of what you want to get out of it, then I think that's equally as valuable as someone who maybe looks the part but is not able to communicate it or get you to do what you're supposed to do. So I'm thinking of like people in like coaches, and they might not have been able to play at the highest level, but they're able to understand the game or teach concepts and build the person better than a person who might have been in the league but not able to transfer their greatness over to the people that they're working with. So I think how you communicate it, how you work to set examples and make sure that things are understandable, I think that's equally as important as like being able to do the thing that you're trying to have the person do. And that's kind of how I've evolved on this, because I was like, I want you to look like you play the part and then be able to do it. But I think seeing more people become successful with their experiences and learning and all the resources that are available now, I think that's changed my view on what I expect from somebody that I'm trying to learn from.
Right. I think there should just be like a healthy middle ground. Like, obviously, to some extent, you do want to look the part so that your clients feel confident in you and themselves, going back to confidence. But at the same time, I mean, it's really just dependent on like what you're looking for. I mean, I'll kind of relate it back to Key when you mentioned bodybuilding. If I'm a client who's looking to do like a bodybuilding show, I'm going to look for a bodybuilding coach who has experience in bodybuilding, which in turn, they're probably going to have a very low body fat percentage because that's what they have the experience of being at a low body fat percentage. Whereas like on the contrary, if I'm looking more for performance, sometimes like people who train for performance have to sacrifice the aspects of, bodybuilding. They're two way different styles of training, way different. And I kind of laugh too when like athletes, especially like in high school, they train like bodybuilders. And that's how you know that there's just a really like, it's a saturated field and not a lot of coaches are able to defer. Okay, there's a training style for bodybuilders, and then completely on the other hand, there's a training style for athletes. And sometimes I feel like people just kind of mix the two together, and they're just so different that to me, you got to pick one or the other because they're so different.
yeah, I like to view it as like a spectrum. Like you're gonna have like there's like, for example, the way I think about it is like you have take like bodybuilding is over here. If you want to take training, bodybuilding is over here. Then you have like whatever, like you're just exercising to feel good, and then you can start exercising for strength, and then you're going into powerlifting. But you can't, if you want to be one or the other, you're like you said, you're gonna have to sacrifice, and you can't have all the qualities at once. Then when it comes to like high school athletes, I think that it's gonna get better in the future because I think there's more education and knowledge out there on the importance of like smart training and appropriate training for athletes. But I think it just comes back to people not like right now having that knowledge of how to specifically train an athlete, because if you're training bodybuilding style, you're never going to tap into the physical capabilities you need as an athlete. Like you're never going to get power, you're never going to get like rate of force development, things like that. So I think in the future is going to be better, but I think right now that's where like high school and certain colleges are falling short because they don't have qualified people handling the programming.
Right. It's slow. It's slowly getting better, but it's definitely not at a place where we can say it's like at its best right now. So.
Yeah. You'll see like different programs. I've seen different programs on Twitter for like football off-season conditioning. People are like power cleaning 90%, 3x8 reps. I'm like, are you guys crazy? Like, I'm like, how are you able to program for a group of kids? And it's like the basic stuff that should be knowledge. Like anyone 90%, you got to give them adequate rest time, but you piling up a bunch of high intensity stuff back to back to back to back to back. I'm like, I think that's kind of the big problem with the people that get popular on social media and not having the basics understood and just throwing whatever they see on Instagram or whatever works and expecting that to work for a big group and then wondering why all your people are getting injured or wondering why your people don't like coming to training. I think there's going to be more of an onus on proper and like smart education on training and making sure that you get your work in, but you also get in the other side of it too and working smarter and not necessarily harder all the time.
Yeah. Key, I think I remember seeing a tweet of yours, like it had to have been a while ago, but you tweeted a picture and you said, if this is what your workout program looks like you have like a terrible coach or something. And it was like it was literally, there was
extensive. I think it was like a true coach picture.
Dude, it was like, there was like 15 exercises on there. I'm like, how long? They had to have been in the gym for at least like 2.5 hours.
Yeah, I think I got that on Twitter. So Meg probably saw that too. It was crazy.
Oh my gosh. And a big, like a really clear indication that a program is kind of foo-foo is if if they have like a plyometric section and the plyometric section is like high reps, like say they're doing like
20 box jumps,
3 sets of 15 box jumps. Like, dude, you're gonna kill this guy or girl's tendons and ligaments.
Yeah, and I think like Meg said, that's the issue with people blowing up on Instagram. But I also think people, especially when it comes to the younger population, when I say people, I mean like parents, when it comes to kids, they're becoming more aware of like the importance of like appropriate training. So that's why I think it's gonna get better. But I also think that as coaches, people should have more education in their like within their programs so that people aren't falling victim to things like this.
Right.
So I do want to say, speaking of like training for performance, at one point I was really like trying to get into powerlifting and I got bored with it. But now I'm training and I'm doing like a whole bunch of like hypertrophy, condition, like everything, like jack of all trades, master of none. And I feel the best like this.
Oh,
like
yeah.
I'm probably not my strongest, but I feel really good. So I think like people are gonna, like when you go through a exercise journey, when you start exercising, you're gonna find out like what works best for your body and what like feels best for you. So having the programming, like at least basic knowledge of programming, can allow you to kind of get to that point where you're able to like pull different things together, and see
Right.
how you're feeling.
Something that I've been adding into a lot of my programs now is like actual conditioning, not cardio, because I think conditioning and cardio are two way different. Like when I think of cardio, I think of, okay, I'm going to run on the treadmill for like 30 to 60 minutes, like steady state cardio. But conditioning, like interval training, smart interval training, because a lot of people will just run themselves into the ground with interval training. But I've been doing a lot of like strongman conditioning. So like a lot of farmers carries, a lot of like odd object carries, a lot of like sled pulls, sled pushes. Man, I feel I may not be at like my lowest body fat percentage that I've ever been at, but as far as performance and like at the weight that I'm at, I've never felt better. So that's something that I've been adding into my clients' programs recently, and they absolutely love it. And it's fun. Like pushing and pulling sleds is fun. It's a good time. So
It is fun. And I think people either have, like you said, when you think of cardio, you think of like steady state. And I think a lot of people I encounter, they think the opposite of cardio. They think of anything that like kind of makes them out of breath and they can't perform for a long period of time. So I think mixing it in with the variety and having things that are more enjoyable, that not only is good for like your health, obviously, like adding in that type of conditioning, but I think is important to add in just for like consistency with the program, because following like the same program for 4 weeks for somebody that's not used to training is pretty hard. So having that variety in there is helpful. What I've been doing is I'll program a month for my clients, but then I'll give them like a fun day each week if they want to do it, like just to take a break from the program.
Like
So
a
that's
optional
been
day.
exactly, yeah, like you could swap it out.
Nice.
That's helpful.
You'd be proud of me too. I've been getting in some conditioning work also.
That day was hard. The day you had us do, Jeremiah did it in like, he did 6 rounds or something like that.
Okay, but I did it like right before I had a client, and my client walked in and she was like, "Holy cow, you are drenched." And I'm like, I was like struggling to talk. So
I get
my
6 rounds.
my RPE was probably more like a 10. So
I don't think I could have got my RPE to a 10. I was like, oh no.
It was hard though. Have you been doing that?
I think I'm doing today.
I've been sprinkling in, but I've also tried to be more specific with like more like interval stuff for like 15 seconds on, 4 or 5 seconds off. Like on the echo bike, just trying to work on like the building my base and trying to perform better on the basketball court because I'm tired of getting gassed. So I was like, I'm gonna do something about this. But then I also sprinkle in those circuit kind of days because those are fun. Like it's fun to throw stuff at the wall. It's fun to move from thing to thing and just not think about it, but just see if I can compete with myself. And I did 3 rounds in 40 minutes last time. Around the second round, I started to get gas. I'm gonna do it again. Let me see if I can get through this whole thing faster or complete more rounds, or it's just a way to compete with myself. If I don't got nobody else to work out with, it's just a way for me to keep track. And I think writing stuff down and being like, all right, this is where I was at last time. This is what I'm shooting for. So now when I have people, I'll be like, all right, this is what you got last time. This is what we're shooting for. So it creates a little competition with yourself, which I don't think is a bad thing at all.
Man, you should instead, not saying to change up what you're doing, but at some point you should try, instead of doing 15 seconds on, 45 seconds off, do like 15 seconds of like hard, like on the echo bike, and then 45 seconds of just like easy, just like at like a RPE of like 3 or 4, and just like easy, brisk, instead of completely going off. I feel like you'd see some great results.
That's why I'm at. I don't completely like step off the bike. I be pedaling slowly. I just not as fast as the 15 seconds that are on.
Nice. Perfect. Are you completely focusing on like conditioning, or are you still doing like some strength stuff too?
Yeah. The strength stuff is still built in there. I'm still working on dunking, so that's still on the deck. But I've been trying to, like, being here, I haven't really found a like consistent hooping community yet. So I've just been working on when it does come that time, I want to be ready because you gotta make an impression. So it's not gonna be because I'm tired that I'm not able to play. So I'm trying to make sure that I'm ready for when that time comes.
You guys have a gym where you're at, like a basketball court?
There's 24-hour fitnesses and things like that, but I don't know where people run at, people that
I meant your work, because I know there's some places that, like physical therapy places, that have built-in facilities like that.
no, not basketball courts or anything like that, unfortunately.
I mean, you probably won't have trouble finding something though, because that place is huge.
Yeah, it sounds like a lot of people play outside, and I was like, all right, fine, we can play outside, but you're trying to be inside when it's in the summertime. But oh well.
I mean, if it's 75 degrees and a light breeze, man, I'd be playing outside every day too, man.
I thought you could play outside all year over there.
Yeah,
right.
you can.
Technically, you were in Florida.
In Alaska, you can only play outside for like a month. And you
It's
gotta get
snowing
your
out there.
outside.
What's the weather like right now?
It's really
It's
nice.
60.
It's like 65 right now, and
Oh,
it's
that's so nice.
no clouds.
Ugh.
But this whole summer has been awful. I mean, we've probably had like in total like 3 weeks of really nice weather this whole summer, from like May until now. In total, like 3 weeks. It's been bad.
If you had to relocate, where would you relocate to?
Ooh. Um, Probably, honestly, probably the Pacific Northwest. I'm not like a heat guy, honestly. I like the like 60 to 65-degree weather. Um, but then again, like Seattle and Portland, places like that, it rains all the time, and I hate the rain. So maybe not that. Um, I don't know, man. That's a good question. I haven't really thought about that.
Come on down. Come on down.
I'm not living over in California, brother. I don't make enough money for that.
They said I just watched the
Not like
TikTok
you, man.
today. They said it was either a 1 bedroom or a 2 bedroom was $4,000 a month
It's crazy.
in like San Diego or something or San Francisco. One of those spots. I'm just like, that's insane.
I don't got that kind of
Ridiculous.
credit, man.
I have a question for you, Jeremiah.
Yes.
What resources have you been diving into lately for like personal development and like business, if any,
Hmm.
or even books?
As far as like educational or just like in general.
Any?
There's I think I bought this like 2 or 3 months ago. There's a guy that I follow. I started following him on Instagram. Um, he's under Jason Brown Coaching. And I don't know if have you ever heard of the conjugate method
Yeah.
as far as I train it? So he's big on like the conjugate method, and so I started like watching his videos, and he actually released this thing called the programming playbook, and it's basically like it's a course all about like programming, and it's not one of those courses that like you have to follow like in order. You can like kind of bounce back and forth from different sections of the course. Um, and it basically kind of teaches you like how to effectively program for like different types of clients. So like 2 times a week, 3 times a week, and then it kind of specifies like different types of clients. So like athletes, tactical, like tactical athletes, like fire
Firemen,
department, yeah, firemen, police officers. There's like a
military.
bunch of military. There's a bunch of different ones, but I like fell in love with it. Like it's an amazing course. And it's actually pretty affordable. It was like $400 for the whole thing. Um, and I mean I've learned so much just off of that course, and I still kind of go back and forth with it. Like I finished it through and through. Um, but I downloaded it, and I to this day I still go back and forth and just kind of like if I need to refresh on something, I'll read up on it. Um, but that, and then also like personally, um, earlier we were talking about trying to build like a work-life balance. I actually am seeing a therapist to try to like get some guidance on that, on like how to implement that. So I kind of have a coach myself. Um, so like those are the two things as far as like personal development and business development.
That's dope. Is conjugate training like when you alternate or rotate through exercises and it's like to prevent like
Yeah.
fatigue of your central nervous system or something like that?
Essentially, you're right. It's essentially a lot of it is tailored towards like working smarter, not harder.
I
Um,
think that I haven't dived into it much, but I feel like that type of stuff could be applied to like all types of populations.
yeah. Definitely. You should follow him on Instagram. He's great. He's and then if you want that course, like I said, I swear by it. It's an amazing course. So and I think he just dated it too. So it's like there's new stuff in there.
I'm gonna check it out.
1 to 2 takeaways as we start to wrap up here. 1 to 2 takeaways that you want listeners to get away from listening to this conversation.
Well, I loved the topic of talking about the differences between a trainer and a coach and similarities too. But I think being able to defer, like the differences between being a client and being able to defer trainer and a coach, or recognizing what a good trainer is and what a good coach is. And then recognizing that it's expensive to live in California. Just kidding. I think
That was a good way to end it. No, I'm playing.
I think also just being able to realize that like even like professionals like us, we still have like our downs and like the business side of things. So like me, I'm trying to work on my work-life balance, and that's something I've struggled with. Just being able to recognize that like no matter who you are, no matter what level you're at, you're gonna go through ups and downs. And you're gonna have your days, your time, your months where you're not fully there. And you're gonna make mistakes. Like with my people, I always tell you're gonna plateau at some point, and you're gonna get through it. It's normal. It happens. There's gonna be days where you weigh yourself and you're gonna gain weight, and you're gonna lose weight, and you're not gonna gain or lose anything. You're gonna plateau. It's just all about staying consistent and just getting through those tough times.
I like that. That's a good way to end it. Let's not bash California just yet.
You
Not bash California just yet. Where can people find you if they have questions or want to reach out or want to get to work with you?
You can, so obviously I got my Instagram at Movin With Jerry. And then you can check me out on my website, www.movinwithjerry.com. Those are like my two main streams of social media, and obviously my website. So yeah.
Bet. And we'll link those in the show notes. Go follow Jeremiah. Jeremiah, thank you for coming on the pod. We really appreciate the time and really proud of your success, and wish you continued success moving forward.
Thank you guys. Thanks for having me.
No problem. Catch you guys on the next episode. Peace.
Peace.